And there was only
Sorry, guys, I forgot to hit the recording button.
one candidate at that time. And that was 2 weeks ago. So I don't know if anybody else has put their name in the hat.
Did you say there was only 2 candidates?
There was only the one.
One.
I'm gonna go look. I'll get back to you.
Yeah.
Dilenia,
Sorry,
can we
are
get
we
started? Because
just
I'm
waiting?
yeah, because I'm gonna fade. I have been helping my mother in and out of the hospital, so I'm hoping we can get started here soon.
Actually, we're started. We're in public comments right now. I didn't want to rush anybody if they had something to say. Kind of waiting on a couple people to see if anybody else shows up. But yeah, we have started. Did you want me just to introduce the next guest? And yeah,
That'd be awesome.
all right. Well, Travis, you're up, my friend.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'll hello everybody. Introduce myself here, and then do I have the ability to share my screen? Oh, good. It looks like I do. So I can share my screen, and if someone could just let me know if they're seeing the presentation or if they're seeing my notes screen. I just want to make sure it's the right one, so that way people can see the full version.
We're seeing your presentation.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. So hello, my name is Travis Knudsen. I'm the Public Affairs Manager for the Lane Regional Air Protection Agency, and I'm here to talk about air monitoring that we have in Lane County and the monitoring that does take place in Whiteaker and the role of air quality complaints and just kind of a general 101 on who LRAPA is, what we do here in Lane County, and how we service Lane County. So the first thing I need to talk about is broadly sort of LRAPA's authority as a county-wide government and how we regulate and have authority over the air, so to speak, here in Lane County, because we are the air protection agency. And that authority is derived from the Clean Air Act, which is federal law passed in the 1970s with major amendments that took place in the 1990s. And what the Clean Air Act does is it's our federal government giving permission or authority to the EPA to set health standards and to essentially regulate air quality across the country. And so the way the EPA went about doing that is they then passed their authority to regulate air quality down to the state. And that authority in Oregon is held by the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality. And so DEQ has at least as stringent air pollution protection programs as the EPA, and also can have more stringent air quality measures, which DEQ does. And that authority can be passed down one more time, which has happened in Lane County for LRAPA. And we essentially have that authority of the Clean Air Act and the state authority and local authority here. And that authority was derived by the county government and the cities of Eugene, Springfield, Cottage Grove, and Oak Ridge, which come together and form an intergovernmental agreement that founds LRAPA and allows us to essentially implement the Clean Air Act here locally across Lane County. And one of the things about this relationship is as that authority is passed down from one level to the next, only more stringent or tighter regulations can be applied. So LRAPA can never be less strict than the state, and the state can never be less strict than the federal government. We can only be more strict. So that's a one-way relationship in how those added regulations can go. So what does LRAPA do in Lane County? Well, to say sort of broadly, we basically create rules to regulate air quality through a rulemaking process and then implement those rules. And what that looks like is we do things like monitor air quality for different types of air pollution. We implement strategies or programs that will improve or protect air quality across Lane County. And we do informational campaigns to educate the public on any sort of regional air quality issue that may be taking place or ongoing. A big part of what we do is we issue air permits to businesses like industry who emit pollutants above a certain level. And then, of course, we follow up those permits with routine compliance inspections, whether those are planned or unannounced inspections throughout Lane County, to assure that those who have air permits are following those permits and following the rules, regulations, and laws as our government has passed them. And then a big part of what we do as well is we receive, investigate, and we preserve air quality complaints that have been submitted to us by anyone in Lane County. And finally, any of those rules that we establish kind of governing the Clean Air Act here in Lane County, we have authority to enforce those rules as well. So what that looks like is air quality complaints. I mentioned we do quite a few of those. In 2021, we accepted about 700, well, almost 800, 799 complaints, investigated about 98% of those. We really would, of course, love to have 100%, but we have 3 compliance officers and capacity sometimes is an issue, but we strive to get as close to that 100% mark as possible. We do things like regulate outdoor burning, which in the Whiteaker neighborhood isn't really much of an issue, but as you get out to more rural areas, people will do things burning their yard debris as a way of disposing it. We'll respond to outdoor burning complaints throughout the county as well. Anytime we issue a civil penalty or essentially write a ticket, those penalties do not go to LRAPA. Those go to the Lane County General Fund, and annually they can range anywhere between about $20,000 to $50,000 a year. I mentioned we issue our air permits to commercial and industrial businesses here in Lane County. And if LRAPA didn't exist, that would be done by DEQ, by the state government. Local permitting, from our opinion, is better because we can be more detailed. We're more familiar with the area. We can have better relationships with not only community members, but with the businesses that we're regulating as well, and can be more prompt and more responsive. We also have more air monitoring that takes place in Lane County. If LRAPA didn't exist and it was just DEQ that was regulating air here across Lane County, there would be less monitoring that takes place. An example of that is the Purple Air monitoring network that we have installed throughout Lane County. And then finally, we do things like work to assure that the county is meeting those federal standards or federal standards that are set by the federal government. An example of this is Oak Ridge and West Fir out in West Lane County. In the wintertime, wood stoves can create an air quality problem where their air quality is worse than what the federal government says air quality needs to be. So we implement programs to gradually improve air quality in Oak Ridge over time. Which we have done. And so here's a little graph that sort of shows that air quality over time, the change to it. Oak Ridge is that orange line you see, their air quality throughout the years. The red line there on the screen, that's the federal standard that the EPA sets, that all areas have to be, basically air quality has to be better than that line. And then the other lines you see there, those are kind of Eugene area, Cottage Grove, Springfield, which are all below that standard. But over time, Oak Ridge, or historically, you can see was above that line. So there was a lot of work that LRAPA did to improve air quality over time, and then get the EPA to recognize that Oak Ridge is now below those federal standards. And so that's an example of some of the work that we'll do here in Lane County. Another big role that we play is we issue air quality advisories when air quality gets pretty bad. The image you see on your screen, that's a satellite imagery from the Holiday Farm fire and the other fires throughout Lane County in 2020. Anybody who was here in Lane County in 2020 certainly remembers that. So when air quality gets bad from wildfires or other situations, we'll issue an air quality advisory to kind of alert the media and alert, residences and communities that air quality is certainly bad and action needs to be taken to prevent exposure to that poor air quality. And we work closely with other government agencies like Oregon DEQ, Lane County Public Health, the Oregon Health Authority, Oregon Department of Forestry, the U.S. Forest Service, and then any team that's actively fighting that fire. Cedar Creek, for example, this year, which created some really bad air quality in Oak Ridge and here in Eugene Springfield area for a while, has kept me very busy for quite some time. I'm happy that that fire has finally calmed down a bit. And why does this matter? So the big reason, why are we regulating air quality? Why does the Clean Air Act exist? Why do we set these standards? And that's because air pollution is bad for health, particularly particulate matter, which is PM. So PM2.5 and PM10 are different forms of pollution of particulate matter. And in Lane County, that's our most common form of pollution. And particulate matter is basically wood smoke. So wildfire smoke will create particulate matter. Wood stove smoke will, like, running a fireplace or a campfire, anytime you're burning wood. Fuel, like diesel fuel, that will also create particulate matter. Any form of combustion will basically create this particulate matter. And it's these very, very small particles. So PM2.5 means that the particle is smaller than 2.5 micrograms, which you can see kind of in the image there. A human hair is 50 to 70 micrograms. And PM2.5 is even smaller than that, 2.5. PM10 is 10 or smaller. And these pollutants create health problems. Short-term health problems are you'll be coughing, you might need to go to the ER. The particles are so small that they get in your lungs, and then they just kind of become entrapped and they'll stay there. Studies have shown that it's penetrated the lungs into the bloodstream and accumulated elsewhere in the body and can cause things like cancer and other bad health problems. So we regulate air quality to minimize as much of that pollution as we can, so we're not breathing it. And in Lane County, our sources of what creates the worst days of air quality are driven really by two things. The first thing, of course, is wildfires during the summertime. This year was an example. 2020 was another example. Wildfires are certainly becoming a more common staple on our air quality or impact on our air quality than history. And that's related to climate change and the drying climate that we're seeing across the Pacific Northwest. And then in the wintertime, we'll see poor air quality days when we have periods of air stagnation. And that just means that the air is not moving around for like many days on end. So any pollution that's added to the air just stays there. And over time, as pollution, as wood stoves and cars and just other kind of pollution we have, it accumulates over time because the air is not moving. It's the same air mass, and that will degrade our air quality gradually over time as well. So an important thing to note when you're talking about air quality is the air quality index. And this is essentially a rating scale from good to hazardous of how good or potentially bad the air quality is. And when it's between 0 to 50, which is the good category, that's great. We love good air quality. Moderate is from 51 to 100, and it's a yellow color. And that's when sensitive groups should really start to consider how much hard exercise or heavy breathing they're doing outside. And sensitive groups will be something I'll mention a couple times here. And who is a part of a sensitive group is anybody who has a heart or lung disease, an older adults, anyone who's pregnant. Children and teenagers are also considered sensitive groups. So when air quality continues to worsen, which here in the Eugene Springfield area, we commonly saw air quality in this unhealthy for sensitive groups from the Cedar Creek fire. And that's when really everybody should do things to avoid, being outside and going for a run or, taking a long walk or doing anything where you're breathing really heavily. That's not something you should do when air quality is in the unhealthy for sensitive groups range. And those sensitive groups should really kind of reduce their outdoor exposure as well. When it gets into the red range, which is unhealthy, that's when everybody should really start avoiding going outside. The sensitive group should consider going outdoors at all, like staying inside as much as possible. Getting into the very unhealthy, then everyone really needs to be avoiding going outside. And then hazardous, which we have seen here in the Eugene Springfield area with the 2020 cedar or wildfires, and Oak Ridge more recently had many days in the hazardous range because of how close they were to the Cedar Creek fire. But that's when everybody should avoid going outside as much as possible, or really just leave the area if you have the ability to do so. So we do monitor throughout Lane County to know sort of where on the scale the air quality is. And we do that through 8 ambient air quality monitoring stations. And these monitors that we have are very accurate and expensive kind of government regulatory grade monitors that we use to tell the EPA, to tell the federal government that our air quality is meeting those standards that they set under the Clean Air Act. So here's those locations throughout Lane County. We essentially have 4 of them in the Eugene-Springfield area, 1 in Oak Ridge, 1 in Cottage Grove, and 1 in Florence. And then we have 1 in Saginaw, which we run during the summer to look for ozone, which is a summertime pollutant. And here's just some examples. I'll kind of run through these quickly of some of the government grade or regulatory grade monitoring that we do. This is essentially air gets pushed through this filter, and then the filter gets weighed to determine how much stuff was in the air. This was discontinued this year, but was done up until 2022. We have these beta attenuation samplers, which essentially use a small little bit of beta radiation to judge how good or bad the air quality is. Also another expensive device. We use a nephelometer, which uses a small little laser light to essentially count how many particles are in the air. And this is another kind of costly piece of equipment as well, to purchase about $17,000, and then has ongoing maintenance costs along with it. But there's also other forms of monitoring. These are called purple air sensors, which I'm going to start talking about a little bit more robustly here. But in comparison, they are quite a bit more affordable at about $250, $260 a piece. They're significantly cheaper, and they use the same technology that the nephelometer does, with the kind of the little laser counter that counts how many particles are in the air, essentially. And what this is, so these are some graphs, and I know graphs can sometimes be intimidating, but I'll explain it, what you're looking at here. So the graph on the left is the one to really focus on. And the 2 lines you see, you have a red line and you have a purple line. And so the red line is the LRAPA regulatory, kind of much more expensive, much more precise monitoring. And the purple line is the purple air. And you'll notice that the purple air is higher on the graph, which means it's saying there's more pollution, but it kind of follows the red line really closely, like where all the peaks are, they're all in the same place, all the troughs are in the same place. And this means that the purple airs aren't very accurate, but they're precise. And because they're precise, we can sort of adjust the data a little bit. We're using a math equation, and we can align the data much more closely. So what you're seeing here on the graph, this is when that purple air high bias has sort of been adjusted using some math that allows it to align up with the more expensive and much more accurate regulatory grade monitoring. And when LRAPA sort of did this and realized that this could be done, we were very excited about it. And we started installing these purple air sensors all across Lane County. The first one we installed was 2017. And we were pretty excited about this because these more affordable forms of monitoring up until purple air sensors were kind of not, they were sort of useless. They were basically magic number generators, is one of our monitoring guys sort of qualified it as. But these purple air sensors were kind of the first commercial grade monitoring that was actually pretty good for what it was and was very affordable. So we started installing them all across Lane County. Here's a bit more zoomed in view of the Eugene-Springfield area. And then here's a bit more zoomed in view of the Whiteaker neighborhood area and a little bit beyond. So there are purple air sensors throughout much of Lane County that LRAPA has installed. There also are purple air sensors that just anybody has installed because they're commercially available. Anyone can go and spend the $250, $260 to buy one of these and install it. So we've installed about 100 or so in Lane County, LRAPA has, but there's many more than that because private individuals will purchase these sensors and put them up as well. So it's important to know that, because when you now want to go look for air quality information to know how good or bad the air quality is, you really want to think about your source of that information, because there are pros and cons to both of them. So government sources of information for air quality information is like LRAPA. We have a website. We publish the air quality information on our website. DEQ is a state government, also has a website. They have an app also called Oregon Air that you can get for iPhones and for Android devices. And then the federal government also has a couple websites available to look up that information. They too have an app. It's called Air Now, which I actually really highly recommend that one. It's a very good one. And then Purple Air, as a commercial source of air quality information, they have a website also, which is there. It's maps.purpleair.com. But in addition to that, like if you go onto the App Store, Google or Android or Apple, and you just look up air quality, there are a number of applications on there that will show you air quality. Many of those apps will use information from Purple Air and all the Purple Air sensors that'll be installed. But some of them will also use information from unknown sources. There have been some of these apps that I've downloaded and looked at, and I try to see, you know, okay, where are they getting their information from? Where's their data coming from? And they don't, not all of them really list it. And I've seen some suspect things. So if you're looking at commercial sources of air quality information, just keep in mind that where they're getting their information from sometimes might not be the best source of information, and not all of them are really clear or straightforward on where they're getting that information from. But there's also a difference in timing between these two sources, and this is really important to point out as well. So I'll kind of describe here how it works. When you're looking at a government source of air quality information like LRAPA's website, we display the air quality using what's called a weighted average. And that means we are averaging a period of time in determining what that number is on that air quality index. So when air quality is not changing a whole lot, like now, for example, today, we didn't have a lot of changing in air quality. So if you go to LRAPA's website, the number you see on our website, that's an average of the last 12 hours of air quality. And then when air quality does start to change more quickly, like earlier this year when we had the Cedar Creek fire creating a lot of smoke and it was moving in and out of the Eugene Springfield area, that averaging is shorter, but it still is 3 hours that are being averaged together to come up with that number. In comparison, the Purple Air map and the applications that use that data, you can adjust it. So you can set if you want to see like a 3-hour average, if you want to see a 12-hour average, or you can see even like a 10-minute average. And the Purple Air map by default defaults to 10 minutes. So if you're looking at LRAPA's website, you're seeing an average of the last 3 hours, at least in those numbers, as where if you go to Purple Air website and you're looking at air quality there, the default that they're showing you is the last 10 minutes. So that can create some difference in the numbers depending on what may be going on. So here's an example I want to show you. This was earlier this year, September 9th, and this was 8 o'clock in the evening, where you can see this is the Eugene Springfield area. All the little colors on there are sensors and monitors around the area, and they're all yellow, which is that moderate air quality, which when you see yellow and moderate, you think the air quality is not too bad. There's not too much to worry about. But if you looked on the Purple Air map, which isn't showing you an average of 3 hours, it's just showing you an average of the last 10 minutes, you can see that there's starting to be some reds on here. There's starting to be some purples, and air quality looks much worse on the Purple Air map. And this was because we had smoke starting to move in from the Cedar Creek fire on this day when I saved these images here. And so because air quality was changing really rapidly because wildfire smoke was moving in, the Purple Air map showed that change more quickly than the government source of information or LRAPA's website. So it's important to just keep that timing difference in mind when you're looking at these different sources of information, because that can cause confusion. I have had people, call me up or email me and say, why is it when I look at LRAPA's website, the air quality numbers are this, but when I look at my app on my phone, the air quality numbers are that? And a lot of times it comes into, well, how much time is being averaged to give you those different numbers. So it's just important to keep that in mind when you're looking at your air quality information, because that can be a source of why things look a little bit different. And then finally, talk a little bit about air quality complaints. So when air quality is bad, and especially if it's something that's not caused by a wildfire, like if it's a neighbor who is creating a lot of smoke in their chimney, or you have a weird odor from an industry that you're not sure what that is, we do have a complaint line, and we really like to hear from you to know that you're experiencing those things so we can take action and hopefully address the issue if we have the ability to. So things that are really helpful for us if you're filing an air quality complaint with us is, of course, the location. Where are you, or where is this issue happening, the time it was happening, and then, the type of complaint, like what did it smell like, providing detail. Was it, acidic? Did it smell like wood? Did it smell sewery? What was kind of the odor that was associated with it? Those are helpful things to us as well as we start to investigate these air quality complaints. And so what our compliance officers will do when they get an air quality complaint is they'll kind of look at, what was the wind direction, what were the meteorological conditions going on at the time, and what was the smell like. And maybe it was an industry source, maybe it was a chimney and someone's burning their trash nearby, and those are things that are helpful to us to kind of investigate and hopefully come to a resolution of whatever that air quality issue may be. The map on your screen, that's just a regional look at all of the complaints that we had in 2021. And you don't even have Oak Ridge on the map there. Florence is on the map. That's just kind of a bit more of a zoomed in view of the Eugene Springfield area. And we only have 3 compliance officers all across Lane County. So they are busy and we do take those complaints. We like to know if things are ongoing. When you file your complaint, we do prioritize ongoing issues over ones that happened a day or 2 ago, because if we can experience the situation ourselves, it's much easier for us to recognize and start to address the issue. But that said, all of the complaints that are filed with us are kept and stored in a database. And this is helpful because those complaints are good at drawing our attention. If we have a lot of complaints about a particular source, whether it's a individual and how they're doing their outdoor burn and burning their yard debris, or if it's an industry, a particular nearby business that's creating an issue to a community, letting us know every time that happens is great for where we need to put a little bit more of our attention and maybe add a little bit more scrutiny to what may be going on. And so collectively over time, letting us know that there are issues that you're experiencing, whether it's an odor or smoke, whatever the case may be, that's helpful to us over time to see these patterns and start to address issues as they arise. And then, of course, I said earlier, our goal is to investigate 100% of those complaints, but there's only 3 of them. We can certainly get busy, but we get as close as we can. So that was essentially the presentation I had for you today, but I do want to provide opportunity for some questions, and I'll answer them as best I can.
Anand, go ahead.
Hi, Travis. Thanks for coming. I really appreciate it. What you do is incredibly important. I mean, of all the things that we need, healthy air is probably the #1 thing. So, I'm a nurse and I appreciate the medical necessity of what you do, but I do have a question.
Mm-hmm.
And the question is, when businesses apply for air permits, must they include the medical harm that their air pollution will cause? For instance, how many new cases of cancer or lung or heart disease that they can be expected from the new pollution?
Yeah, so there's a program called Cleaner Air Oregon, which is a newer program that was adopted statewide in 2018. And it does air regulation a little bit differently. Prior to this program called Cleaner Air Oregon, industry was regulated by the amount of pollution that was created. So it would say, here's the limit to an industry, and you can't go above this limit and how much pollution you can create. And there wasn't a health consideration. Nobody was asking, well, what's the health impact on those who live nearby? That wasn't a part of the air permitting process. But since 2019 and since the adoption of this Cleaner Air Oregon program that Governor Brown signed into law, a health risk assessment is done of those facilities that are called into that program. So essentially what it is we say, okay, what's all the pollutants? There's these type of pollutants called hazardous air pollutants or air toxics. So we'll go to a source, an industry, and we'll say, how many of these air toxics are coming out of your facility, and what are they and how much? And then it's determined using a computer model, how does this air pollution move across Lane County, and then who is exposed to it and how much are they exposed to? And when you know those details, what they're exposed to and how much and how long, you can do a health risk assessment where you can say, what's the impact on health? Right. And in the Cleaner Air Oregon rules, if that health risk is high enough, that provides legal authority to LRAPA to require the business to do things differently, like maybe they just don't operate as often, often, or maybe they have to install pollution control devices, or maybe they change the type of chemical they're using because there's another chemical they can use that is much less impactful on health. And so those are new regulations that are coming down the line to address some of these concerns. And in Lane County, LRAPA does implement Clean Air Oregon.
Thank you.
Gail?
Yes, hi. Thank you so much for coming tonight. This has been very educational, and I do appreciate the input. I have the Purple Air app on my phone, so I'm curious to know, are the numbers that are on that app adjusted the way your graph showed, or do they have that bias towards being too high? It looked like across the board, even the good numbers looked high. So I'm curious about that.
Right. What's the name of the app? Because it depends.
Well, that's my other question is I have the Purple Air app. I downloaded it onto my phone at some point when I heard about Purple Air. I tried to get it for a friend of mine and it is no longer on the App Store. So I'm wondering what the hell happened with that. And that's maybe outside of your knowledge, but that's the app I use. It's Purple Air.
Yeah, well, so I guess the long answer to that is Purple Air technically doesn't have an app. They just have their website, but there are applications that use the information that they have and will publish that. So you might have an app called Paku or PAK.
No, I literally have an app called Purple Air with the cute little purple cloud that matches the website. It's exactly the same information because I sent my friend to the website and we compared on our phones. But I somehow have an app which I guess doesn't exist anymore. But
I've got it too, just so you know.
Okay, so Anand, you also have the Purple Air app. So the Purple Air app did once exist. It does not appear to any longer exist to get, but it still works.
Okay. Well, to answer your question then about the conversion and matching with the graph, I'm going to share my screen one more time just to show you this. So here's the Purple Air map that I have on right now. On your screen, if you are on the Purple Air map, up in the top left-hand corner, there's this little settings thing. And when you drop down, here's the settings you can change. And here's where you can change it to, that real time if you want to look at the last 1 hour, 6 hours, whatever the case may be. And then that little conversion to essentially fix the graph, that's this apply conversion box right here. US EPA is the one I recommend. There is one for LRAPA, which is one that we created back in 2017 when we first sort of discovered Purple Airs, and we said, oh, you can just correct the data and it's better. More recently, the EPA created one, and the EPA's honestly is better. We found that LRAPA's conversion as air quality starts to get really, really bad, our conversion is less accurate, as where the EPA's conversion as air quality starts to get really, really bad. It still more accurately sort of massages that data. So whether it's the app on your phone that kind of takes you to this website, you just open up the settings on your phone and just make sure that the conversion's being applied, whether it's LRAPA or EPA, it doesn't matter too much, but I use the US EPA one. That's what I choose.
It appears that the default is the US EPA 2.5 AQI and a 10-minute, at least on my app.
Cool. But yeah, that's where you would change that to make sure that correction factor is being applied.
Travis, you said the better app is the Air Now one.
Well, Air Now is nice. I'll share my screen one more time real quick because there's another website so one of the things with Purple Air is people can do things like put them in really bad spots, or they might not be, representative or have issues. And there's not a lot of, there's just no one's looking at the data to see if it's right or if it's wrong. It's just out there. As where when you're looking at a government source of information, we look at that data and we do make sure that it's kind of relatively accurate or not just super misleading. So the EPA has this Air Now app, which you can download, and it has this information, or you can go to this website at fire.airnow.gov. And it does show you the same exact thing. Here's all of those sensors. Here's the Whiteaker neighborhood, just like we see on the Purple Air map. But as you can tell, even here, this is a great example. Notice how there's a lot of oranges and a lot of different, colors here. But if you look at the EPA one, everything's still in the yellow. And this is because the EPA one, the government one's a little bit slower to catch up to drastically changing things. But what I like about the EPA map is it does things like it plots all the wildfires. So you can see, where these wildfires are. and you can click on them and it will pop up a little bit of information. It will show you, where that fire is at and the smoke it's creating. So it's more helpful when wildfire season's around to provide additional context to why the air quality might be bad, but it is a little bit slower to update when air quality is changing really, really fast. So that's just the one thing to keep in mind. And also with the AirNow app, or that fire and smoke map, you don't have to worry about any conversion factor, making sure it's applied. That's already been applied to that information.
Gotcha. Stephen?
Great to see you, Travis, and thank you very much for your clear presentation. I've had COPD for many years, and I'm very conscious of air quality. My partner and I use the Purple Air app. We have it most of the time set to the US EPA 2.5. And we have it at the 10-minute interval because we are interested when things are changing, because if it's changing rapidly, I need to get indoors. And in the last couple of days, and we've been correlating it to the fire smoke maps to see the plumes that are coming over. In the last couple of days after the rains, there have been very few fires affecting Eugene, and yet the air quality currently now on the 10-minute average in the Whiteaker is at 99, which in our part of the Whiteaker, that's quite high. And we wondered where the 2.5 micron particles are coming from today and yesterday in the absence of fire plumes.
So it still is wildfire smoke that's contributing. The wildfire that's in Washington, it's there's a couple ones in Southwest Washington. I'm forgetting the names of them at the moment, but they're creating a little bit of smoke, but our air quality, or air mass, I should say, at the moment is not moving a whole lot. It has been a couple days. Since we've really seen a storm move on through. We've had some light drizzle here and there, but it's kind of been foggy starts to the mornings, the last couple of days, and that's a sign that the air is not moving. So even though there's not as much wildfire activity taking place, there still are fires burning in the Cascades, and they do create smoke, and that smoke will fill into the valleys, and we'll see our air quality be impacted. And that's what we're seeing right now, currently happening across the Eugene-Springfield area. So it may seem like we're out of wildfire season, but there still is fire burning. Even the Cedar Creek fire, for example, is smoldering and will likely continue to produce smoke for the next couple months.
This has nothing to do with people burning wood to heat their homes in the Eugene area.
There could be some of that's associated to that for sure, especially as temperatures get colder. But as you look at kind of the winds and things like that, we are seeing some of that smoke move on in. But that is starting at the winter time, and when we have those air stagnation periods, any air pollution that's added to the air mass will degrade that air quality.
Yeah, we had a frost this morning and yesterday morning, so I imagine people were cranking up their wood stoves. Okay, thank you very much for that information.
And then we've got one, let's have Brad finish.
You want me to finish, or did you want Gail to finish? Because I'm going to start.
Oh, gotcha.
You want Gail to finish first? She had a question to follow up.
I see Jennifer also has her hand up.
Yep. Again, I was going by the queue. If your name was in the queue.
Okay.
Jen, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Travis, for all that information, and there was a lot given. And my notes I have, first I want to say that since I have moved to Eugene, Oregon, I have developed pulmonary fibrosis. And I don't know what to attribute it to because there's so many things going on at once. But I never had it when I lived in smoggy LA for my childhood and my, growing up into adult. So that is something, that's where I'm coming from. It's why do I have this now? And I don't expect you to answer that question. However, things come up like, why do we have so much fog suddenly, it seems to me? And has anyone been shut down because they have really been abusive and polluted? And do fines help? And do they really make any difference? And are the fines hard enough for a sting to have people who pollute the air behave?
Sure.
And also, you mentioned a complaint line, but you didn't put a phone number up there.
Oh.
And,
You're right.
So I'm just going to go with that. And just from my point of view, when we have our serious grass season and tree season, I wear an N95 mask and it does help. And, you know, I have to doctor up and everything and wear safety glasses. So I think when things are bad, that's what we should all be doing. But she did not mention masks and their benefits. I mean, when it's really bad, like in 2020, I think you have to stay indoors and pray.
Sure. So there's a few questions that I'll try to get to them all. And in terms of why you might be having medical diagnoses now versus, you know, when you were younger, one of the things about air pollution, particularly PM2.5, is the long-term health consequences of exposure to that pollution. So for now, like example, being exposed to wildfire smoke today might not be something that seems too impactful. You know, it might be, it's kind of a little gross outside, but it seemed okay. And so you don't change your actions too much. And while that didn't seem too consequential at the time, PM2.5, because the particles are so small, when you inhale them and then you exhale, you don't exhale all that you inhale. There will be particles that will become entrapped in your lungs, and then they just stay there. And then over a lifetime of exposure to air pollution and poor air quality, that collection of particles that are just so small and entrapped in your lungs can grow over time. And then that's what later in life can lead to unfortunate health diagnoses. So sometimes, especially children who are exposed to air pollution when they're younger, can see later in life unfortunate health diagnoses from that earlier exposure. And it's just because of the fact that it stays in your lungs, and that exposure over time can lead to those long-term issues. On the question of fines for on industry, one of the things that LRAPA accounts for, and we do this the same way that DEQ does statewide, is it's called economic benefit. So when a civil penalty is assessed on a person who has an air permit, an economic benefit is made in determining the civil penalty. So essentially the question is, was there any sort of money saving from this issue that created us to kind of issue the civil penalty? And if so, how much is that? And then whatever that is quantified to, that is added as part of the enforcement. So that economic benefit, I think, is a tool that, you know, really discourages businesses from wanting to cut any corners, so to speak, because it is accounted for what savings may have occurred. And then that is added to the civil penalty to equate it out. And the reason why it works that way is because we want sort of a level playing field when it comes to businesses in Lane County. We don't want anybody cutting corners. We want everybody following the rules and regulations as they're written. So that way everybody's operating on an equal playing field. And then there might have been one other one that I might be forgetting.
Sorry, the complaint number?
Oh, yes.
It's in the chat.
I did put that in the chat, and that number is 541-726-1930. And when LRAPA's has business hours, there's someone who will answer that generally, unless they're already on the phone. So if you get to a voicemail, if it's after hours, just try to be as detailed as you can in the voicemail. You know, your name, what you're experiencing, what you smell, the time, the location. Provide as much detail as you can. That's most helpful to us.
And what's going on with the fog, please?
Jen,
yes.
let's.
So this I can answer a little bit, because I do have a degree in meteorology, and we have a region of high pressure overhead currently, and that just means that kind of the air is stagnant, air is not moving. So at night, when we have this not moving air and it settles into the valley, because it cools down and air sinks as it cools, the relative humidity increases as the air is cooling and compressing. And when it gets high enough, we start to see cloud droplets form. And essentially, it's the formation of a cloud. And as far as like more recent or more development of fog over the last couple of years, I can't really explain any of that, because I don't know how to quantify if that's something that's taking place or not. But when we see that fog, it is because we have that stagnant air overhead.
All right, and then maybe time for one more question. Was that Gail or Brad?
Brad was ahead of me.
Hi, Travis. Thanks for being here. I have one question for how you can help with something, and then I have a few things to point out that you either got slightly wrong or you were missing on your slide that could be helpful for other people. Here we have this thing called Mako, an auto body repair shop on Railroad near Chambers River Road. And right in their backyard are literally the poorest people in the poorest neighborhood in Whiteaker, a little trailer park. And they just saturate them all summer long with the organics from their spray painting of the cars. It's nasty. Can you help with that?
Well, I guess, what do you mean by help with that?
Is there a way to force Mako to stop opening their whole system up while they're spraying these things? And I mean, it's literally hitting these people's home still in large droplet form, not to mention the aerosolized organic solvent that's carrying it. It's foul. I cannot imagine how the people are doing that. There's children there. They're very poor. They're mostly not going to be able to call you. There's a language barrier for most of them. And do you regulate things like auto body repair shops literally pouring into the neighborhood their fumes?
Yeah. So auto body repair shops, depending on what they're doing, they do have to have an air permit with LRAPA. It's called a general air permit. And the way general air permits work is it's like gas stations, for example, is an example of a general air permit where there's a lot of this activity that's done. And so it's a single permit that anybody who's doing this activity essentially gets this general permit for what it may be. And we have a air permit for auto body shops doing specific things there. It depends on, you know, kind of the solvents and how much and the quantity of what they're doing. When they're doing that and you witness that and you're, you know, it causes you concern, that's when you would file an air quality complaint with LRAPA and express your concern. And what that does is our compliance officers go to that site, observe that situation, and determine if there's any violation of their air permit. And if there's not a violation of their air permit, our authority to address that situation doesn't exist. But if it is a violation of their air permit, that's when we can issue an enforcement action and correct that behavior.
So it's going to be a series of chasing our tail, getting an enforcement officer there at the right time, because it's not every day. It takes certain conditions. And you know, but okay, we can maybe try. Okay, just a few things you had wrong in your thing. You said outdoor burning isn't a problem in the Whiteaker. You are really wrong. In fact, I have a neighbor who's lived in the Whiteaker for the better part of half a century who's about to leave because his neighbor does all summer long outdoor burning. I am about to leave Eugene entirely because I have a neighbor who does him and another one who does intermittent summer outside bonfire burning, and others who do it all winter. I'm getting to the point where, having spent a lot of money to try to clean up my indoor air, I can't go outside. So we have an extensive amount of it. And then there's the wonderful little loophole in the summer. Oh, I'm going to cook a hot dog, so it's a legit fire. It doesn't work here. Just so you know, that is a problem here.
I have a question for you real quick, Brad. Is it an outdoor burn or is it a recreational fire? Because there's a difference by definition.
When somebody does a recreational bonfire, I don't care. To me, that's the same as somebody 10 miles away doing a leaf burn. It's the same amount of particulates. You know what I mean? They will burn.
I guess I would say that they're not the same thing. Outdoor burning and recreational fire are two different things. And recreational fires are prohibited by city code, by Eugene city code.
Unless they're going to pull out a hot dog on a stick and cook it. If they're cooking, it's no longer a recreational fire, it's cooking fire. That's our loophole problem. Does LRAPA have any interest in bringing that to the table among the people who can change it? To like, look, we can't have this loophole, it's not working. Or do you just like, well, you know what, we don't hear about this, we don't care.
LRAPA's rules don't prohibit recreational fire. It's a city ordinance that prohibits recreational fires. So LRAPA wouldn't address that situation. That would be something to be taken up with the city of Eugene.
Okay, some other things that weren't quite right there. Particulates, you ignored the fact that a lot of particulates are coming from tires and brakes from cars. And I know you're electric car guys, so you hate to think about that, but yeah, that's actually bigger than what comes out of the tailpipe of those ICE cars. And that's why historically the monitors are put in the middle of parks. You don't put them next to the road because, oh, the the particulates are higher there. Well, that's where we're living. And that's why there's such a difference in the amount in the health consequences from polluted air in poor neighborhoods and wealthy neighborhoods. Another thing you missed in the health harm is these PM 2.5s, and this is over a decade, it's 15 years since this work was published, are found to cause inflammation of the brain that actually causes IQ damage in children that's just slightly less than eating lead paint chips. So it's not just, oh, well, it affects my lungs. It literally takes out people's brains. It's not a great situation, and especially when we have a virus now doing the same thing to people and we don't know about the synergy. And that might be part of the difference you're seeing with the purple air meters is people are putting those where they are, not out in the park. The other part I have is, oh, that's it. Okay. Oh, one other thing. Yeah, the safe limits for PM 2.5s, scientifically, there isn't one. I know regulatorily you have one. Scientifically, in the science world, there isn't one.
All right, well, Travis, I hope it was interesting and fun for you.
I didn't really appreciate the treatment from Brad, but other than that, I had a very nice time here, and I appreciate you guys inviting me, and I hope you all have a good rest of your meeting.
Thank you. I appreciate you coming.
Bye-bye.
All righty, the next person up is Jen. She's going to be talking about community surveys. Go ahead, Jen.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Let's see. What have I been doing? Do you guys ever wonder what I do quietly behind the scenes? I'm going to tell you tonight, and please don't let me put you to sleep. For when Ian was chair, he assigned me to work with the city staff and on a survey for the community. And that was something I had never done before, but it took hours and days and months to accomplish, working with the city on that survey. And it was put out to the community, or rather to Eugene population, to answer. And hopefully everybody on the board and here in Eugene and Whiteaker answered that survey. It's already closed, so you can't really go back to it. And that was there is a really true value in answering these things. I know that I get annoyed when I have to do a survey. So, but if you don't do it, then you're going to be more annoyed if you don't speak up. So that's what I could say to that. And that survey, I can't remember when it ended, but we did start in the February of this year. And then somehow it evolved into a survey to the boards to answer questions, so you can express your concerns, the things that you love about your community, anything that you want to say can be addressed in that survey. And sadly, you guys, we only had like 5 or 6 people respond to that survey. And that's open until November 15th. And it's somewhere here in the chat. And if you can respond to it and issue your concerns or your happinesses, which hopefully there are some, it's really for us. So, because the city, you know how we feel frustrated and we don't get the answers that we want. This is one way of addressing these situations. So I urge you to please participate in this survey, because it's already November 9th. And if you have any questions, you guys have my phone number. You know how to contact me. I'll be glad to answer anything that you like. And then somehow, this is what's so sneaky, as that we ended up we're doing a revision for the NORP and the model charter. And oh boy, I thought just doing a charter revision was difficult. That doesn't compare to what we're going through right now. So I'm urging you to please, there is a link in this chat, look into our existing current NORP, because I believe the city is going to make contact and try to get on the agenda to talk to you about NORP and what's going on. And if you have an idea of what it means and what it does to protect us, it is like our Bible, and it's supported by the city so that we can have our charters. And right now it's in the throes of many changes, supposedly trying to make it easier to manage, but there's still a lot of work to it. And I urge you to please do that. And if you don't understand it or you don't like it, please say so, because those inputs are important, and they mean that's a way of addressing them to correct things so that we can understand them. Because it's frustrating for me, and I've been working with the NORP for a while. So I'm on that advisory committee. There's 5 of us that works with the city staff, and it's going to take us months. And sometimes I put up to 60, 80, 100 hours of work per month, and I don't even know how that happens. And I understand that people have children and family and all these concerns. I understand completely, because when I was younger, I mean, I didn't even have time to think about this stuff. But getting older, you know, you have parents to think about and yourself to think about. But all of you are dedicated in some form or another because you're here. And that's appreciated. So please take a moment of your time to look at the NORP. Don't attack me if it's so boring and frustrating. Trust me, we are working to try to not simplify it, but to make it more understandable. And also the other thing that I've been doing is I think you heard that I was able to find the residential addresses and the business addresses for Whiteaker.
Can you just elaborate on that a little bit more?
Okay,
The cities had the wrong numbers and
I'm
why
going there.
it's important.
I am going there. So thank you. Anyway, so it turns out between city staff and myself, the way that city staff was asking for addresses was for residential addresses without duplication from the Lane County Office of Government. And I ended up speaking with Lane County Office of Government. And the way that I asked for the addresses was by residential and business addresses. So for, I don't know how many years, we have been denied or, you know, not given credit or funding from the city staff for 432 businesses plus 2 other residential addresses. And the way that we get our funds for mailers and media communication is with the funding that the city allocates to each different neighborhood association. And it's X amount, like $1.25 per residence or address, address. And so I'm now working on the area of trying to see if we can get retro paid for the years that we didn't get that credit, in hopes of having some funds allocated to Whiteaker, that when the day comes and somebody steps up and volunteers to create the e-news, this is just my own personal wish, or whatever use it can be made for, we'll have funding to kick it off. And so it's not completely over, but it's been acknowledged by city staff that from now on, they will ask for both residential and business addresses. And in the interim, I did save us money, because usually to get those addresses, you have to pay money. And I'm using the nonprofit is what helped me get past that. So keep that in mind if you're doing some hunting for money and funds for Whiteaker. Use your nonprofit. If you have any questions, fire away. Yes, Dilenia.
So I know that you've been working on, you know, both of those pieces, and 432 addresses, that's a lot, like, of a difference. And kudos to you for getting the city to actually admit that they made a mistake. and getting us more money and funding. I think that that's kind of important to also kind of point out that there are a lot of businesses in the Whiteaker, 432. And I feel like this board has only been reaching out to the same several ones. And I've been trying my best to reach out to, especially the ones on the other side of the 105 that had no idea that they're even part of the Whiteaker. But I just wanted to say thank you for taking care of that. That was really amazing.
Thank you. Anyone, Stephen?
Yeah, sorry, I was multitasking doing the survey that Jen had directed to do. And as far as I can recall, I had not seen the survey before, so outreach may have been a problem that caused the lack of response.
Okay, it was sent quite a while ago, but let me get that link and I will give it to Dilenia to disperse it again to the board. I'll do it probably tomorrow, not tonight.
And you could just send it out to the board.
Okay.
So,
Okay, thank you.
are there any other questions for Jen? No?
Really? Come on, you guys. Are not?
All right, we are falling a little bit behind. Oh, go ahead.
The NORP you're talking about, how is that an acronym?
Oh, yes, excuse me. It is for Neighborhood Organization Recognition Policy. And that is our Bible. And
Very good.
yes,
Thank you. I can't look things up if I don't know what it is. So
I apologize.
no, that's okay. That's okay. Happens
and-
a lot. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, so just moving on to our next topic, it seemed like there's quite a few people who were confused of why the financial procedure was changed, and the difference between voting on things as a board, city policies, and actual Oregon state law. We had to change the way they were doing things before. Katie Gusky was the only person on the accounts, the only person who had access to the mailbox, the only person who had the checks. This is a very dangerous thing. With our attorney's help and our bankers' help, they came up with a better process to put us back into compliancy because we were out of Oregon state law compliance for nonprofits. So now we are compliant. We will never vote on anything that is not, if it's a state law, we're not going to vote on it. We're going to fix it and move on. Is there any questions about that? No? Awesome. That's all I had for that one. And then the WCC board responsibilities. There's one thing that I have noticed is, there's quite a few board members who are taking on a ton of stuff, and not saying that there aren't other board members, like a lot of times you want to listen, that's great. But in the same token, one of our biggest job is to get more volunteers. I've heard time and time again that, oh, that was Dory Andrews' job. But realistically, per her contract, her job was to get us volunteers for the clinics. We are stronger as a group. And the more people that we can get to help us, especially with items that we just can't tick the boxes off. Talk to your neighbors if they have any kind of computer skills that we need, or, if they could give us an hour, maybe a month or anything. But this is going to take a village to help, continue what we've tried to create here. not to say myself, I feel like this has been a little club for a long time, and I'm trying to reach out to more people in the Whiteaker, because the more people we have, the more, the stronger we're gonna be. So talk to your neighbors, see if anybody can help us. I'm sure you guys already know the issues. We're, trying to make a foundation here so more board future boards can do something. Any questions there about that? Awesome.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
I feel like it can be difficult to get volunteers to sign up for something without a specific task to motivate them and to incentivize them and interest them. So if we have some kind of specific tasks or events or things for them to work on, I would love to have that information when I'm talking to volunteers, because I can easily get volunteers. There are lots of people who want to volunteer, but they need proper direction.
Well, I mean, there's been a laundry list of things. We know the website is one of them. Like, the website is a mess. We need somebody to go out to the businesses, the other 432 businesses, I mean, I understand, but again, probably at the beginning of all this, we had a laundry list of things. And I feel like a lot of times board members are forgetting that there are notes and that there are ways to find what information that we're looking for to tell people, or just have them email, hey, I've got some time. I want to help. We have committees. That's one of the reasons why it's so important for the committees. The committees are to hone down on people and what they specifically want to tackle. Like me personally, when I first came in, it was slowing down traffic. That was my only reason. Getting cars to stop for pedestrians, trying not to get the kids run over. We have a transportation committee. We have a public health committee. We've been trying to get I think it's a justice committee together. So it's just about seeing who needs what, but we do have many different ways. Like, we can have just emails, have them email us and find out what do we need, what kind of special skills. But again, like, website's number one. Social media is another one that we have no help with. The social media. There's, I think we've been here long enough to kind of know what's been some of the things that are holding our, holding us back. Claire, did you have something?
My voice is pretty shot from having COVID for a week. I still have it, which is why I've been typing in the chat. So I invite people to read the chat.
Okay. Okay, we do not have a hired web team. I would still advise needing a volunteer for the website while we still have an active contract. I mean, yeah, that's a good one. Agrees, but yeah. And that's another thing that we need to do is maybe on the page, look for a volunteer. Add some spots for volunteers, but we need to get more people involved. That's just the bottom line. Maybe a one-page volunteer description per need. Well, then we need somebody to write that out. Because I'll be honest with you, on my end, I am looking at the minimum anywhere from 20 to 40 hours a week on just volunteering. And I work a part-time job. So I do more for here than, at my own job. But yeah, if somebody would like to volunteer to write the list, that'd be great. But we do have, I believe it was in the minutes quite a while ago, where I put a list of everything that we needed. Anybody have anything else? Jen?
A couple of things. I wanted to ask Sharice, how is it going that you're working on the website?
I was actually just putting something in the chat about that because it's confusing to me to hear that the website is a mess when all of the updates that have been requested by businesses or artists or the council have been updated to like the best of my ability. And that website was also fully reorganized and redesigned several months ago. And so I wonder if people have taken time to go through the website recently.
I have, and so maybe what I'm hearing is that you need a little more direction so that you know what what you're being asked to do. Would you say? I have noticed some differences at the website, but I was looking for more differences. So, am I hearing you correctly? We need to be specific about what we need you to do because you have the knowledge to do that.
Yeah, that is correct. I can easily make web updates to the website. I know my way around Squarespace, but I'm not like the creative director for the website and choosing and creating content for it.
Okay, thank you. If I don't look at your name, I can say your name, Shersha. But if I look at your name, I get messed up.
Yeah, did you have
I totally
something?
understand. And thank you, Claire, for that clarification.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Jen, Saoirse and Marcus and I have not had time to meet. As all of you know, my mother has been in and out of the hospital 4 times this summer in the last month. And so we've tried to meet, and Saoirse had Whiteaker Market all summer. So we will get an opportunity to meet and talk about some of the things. We were going to meet this next Monday or this last Monday, and I was at the hospital. So we will get a chance to meet Jennifer and talk about some of the things you wanted.
See, I guess that was my biggest thing was that, you know, we've been putting out communication and I haven't received any communication except for, you know, Thea stating about the website. Anybody who writes the Whiteaker Community Council, I believe I asked for like a couple of them and then I didn't hear anything, so I just did it myself and kind of fumbling through it a little bit. And I'm not, you know, pointing fingers or anything like that. It just seems like our communication is just a bit off in trying to contact anybody. And I kind of don't want to disturb people if it's via text because it's, you know, I mean, there's certain people that I will call, but there's certain people that I, you know, try not to bother them. But yeah, I just said the website. Believe me when I tell you, there's a lot more. Like, you know, Dennis did point out we needed to also get the minutes up on the website too, which he volunteered to, I believe, go ahead and get them downloaded and put up there. I need to clarify with him. I did send him an email, but I haven't heard back from him. Stephen, go ahead.
And many months ago, I was asked to summarize some of the research I've been doing for WCC about the history of the Whiteaker in the 19th century. I scurried to do that by a particular deadline I was given, but as I see, there's no content in the Whiteaker on the Whiteaker website yet about the history, other than I think East Blair Co-op may have a mention. So I was told that the Whiteaker still has a lot. The website still has a lot of things to be fixed before that content can be added to the history section. So I'm confused about why it's taking so long.
I could probably answer that for Saoirse. I know she hasn't gotten that content because that's the first thing that, is that the one that you sent out to Ian a long time ago? You're muted, Stephen.
I think it was to Claire and Ian a long time ago, and I can resend it. It was specifically for the website. I can send it to whoever you would like me to send it to. I can send it again. If you tell me who to send it to.
Yeah, if you want to send it to me,
Okay.
and then I'll get it to them. And then, Saoirse, just one question for you. I have 2 email addresses for you. Is it the market one that's better, or they don't want to flood? You're muted.
I do not want to use my market email address, which I think I clarified at the beginning of me starting at the board, but
Yeah, because I think it was just kind of picking it up, and then I noticed it the other day that it was the market, not your private email. So I apologize
thank
about
you.
that.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. And does anybody else have any big items like that? So we understand that like there won't be any board votes if it's an Oregon law or a city policy or anything like that. Like votes are if we're gonna spend money that isn't already allocated to like a budget that has a grant attached to it. Yeah, awesome. So next thing is with Thea. Thea, I know you had questions about what we can do for an advisory panel as far as getting more people involved. So Thea has found, she was able to get a resource team. Did you want to talk on it a little bit, Thea? Are you there?
Yeah, I was trying to get my video to work, but you know, it doesn't want to come up, so we'll see. Let's see if I can get it to work. You don't need to see me, but I am going to share screen because it will shorten my. Can I see a thumbs up for if you can see the Eugene Park Watch up here from somebody? Are we not sharing? Oh, well, let me see. Share. Helps when I hit share, guys. Okay. So if there are issues in the park that you are seeing that make you uncomfortable, or you have visitors, or you see people that need help, that you know somebody's living in the park and they need help. There's a couple of, this is safety issues, but you can also, and it's under the eugene.gov Park Watch, you can also ask for someone to go out and help them. You can ask for park ambassadors to go out and talk to them, or housing officers. So this is for things that happen in Skinner's Butte, Washington, Jefferson, Sladden, Scoburg Gardens, and Maury Jacobs Park. Almost forgot the park in front of my house. And you can zoom in, and you can keep zooming in, and you can tag a park. So if I were to, they have all the city parks here, and if I were to tag Maury Jacobs, I can move this pin around, okay? And I can say, oh, we've got illegal drinking, it can be graffiti, it can be whatever. You put your name, you can put a description of problem, and you can put a photo in here. They will give you a number. If you're having issues with vehicle camping, or if you know somebody that's camping in a vehicle that needs help, because some of our, it's getting cold out. Some of our unhoused neighbors are going to need some resources out there. This is a place where you can report the vehicle camping, okay? More for help, I would call the non-emergency number and ask for a housing service officer. because they will go out and directly help people find resources, places to sleep, things they might need. And so once again, that's the non-emergency, the 541-682-5111. I can also put it in the chat if we need to. And ask for housing service officers to go out and talk with someone if they're needing help. Our big one right now, I don't know if you've noticed, but Union Pacific for the last 6 weeks, the railroad tracks next to Van Buren have been covered with trash. Granola Grizzly Wild Time building actually has fire damage or smoke damage from a fire from a group that was living there. And there's been a barbecue, an oven, a sofa, human waste, needles, just trash in general for almost 6 weeks there now. And we finally got a phone number to call, and I would like to encourage people to start calling trash in, because it's not people, it's trash that is the issue. It's bringing rats, it's bringing other issues for a lot of our businesses and our residents. And I will put the number in the chat, but this is the website. So I went to this particular website. I talked to the Union Pacific police officer, the lone officer that works. When I took Chief Skinner around, we called him and said, hey, how are we going to get this cleaned up? Cleanup isn't expected to come to our tracks until January at the earliest of next year. So I went to this site and I found Contact Union Pacific. It's going to be a little slow. I've got all this up. And then I went to illegal dumping right here. And I started a form. I just clicked on it. But you can see that there are other areas. If the vegetation gets too big, oh, there are transient encampments, but I'm more concerned with the illegal dumping. I don't know what other people are concerned about. And so then I just start putting in my information. And I went all the way through. I chose an area, I answered their questions, and I put some of the things, and then I was able to upload, see if I can get it here. I might not be able to get it.
Down on the bottom, I could kind of see it.
It was on the bottom. Here it is. I was able to upload my photo of the trash, and that's what was there a couple weeks ago. So hopefully this will get action. We need people to provide support for unhoused, and we need people to deal with the trash issues like this so that it's a nice neighborhood for all of us to live. And a lot of neighbors have contacted me, and sometimes the businesses are contacting me. They will report, but they also, they have concerns about reporting.
Yeah.
If they're having some issues. So, and I am still working with Julie Bowman over at Territorial. They're trying to put some nice by Territorial on 3rd and Adams. They're trying to get some nice vegetation and landscape. There's a whole group of neighbors that are working together there. And hopefully we can get that moving forward so that they'll have some next spring, have a nice area along that street for everyone to enjoy. Are there any questions?
And just to add to what you're saying too, Thea, I want people to understand that there's 2 responsibilities. One is from the city of Eugene, who is supposed to keep us safe and keep things clean. And the other is Lane County, who is responsible for the welfare of the people. One of the things that I've been doing is I've been hounding Lane County to send representatives to the street feed. Today or the other day, I got a email back from Kate Budd, and she's the housing manager for Lane County Human Services, and they were going to send somebody out today. They said it was a one-time thing and that's it. But I feel like you could do it one time, you could keep doing it until, so just to make clear that, you know, I know it's frustrating and some people are getting empathy exhaustion, and then others are very empathetic. So if you're concerned with the cleanup and the safety, that's the city that we need to contact. If you are concerned with the people and their needs, then that's going to be the county, and we need to keep that separate. Did anybody have any questions for Thea?
And we do have our park ambassadors. They've officially started. And I asked them to go out and help some campers recently, last weekend, that needed some help, and they were able to provide that help. So they are working in our parks.
And one of the things that I wanted to do was get as many neighbors involved. You know, I know Travis D is very involved, and there was a couple of other neighbors who've been helping, but we definitely need to get more people to pretty much call out the county for not taking care of people and the city for the trash and the things that we need to get done there. Is there any questions for Thea? Anything like that? No?
I have one.
Go ahead, Jen.
Thank you. So, Thea, can you give us phone numbers? Can you put it in the chat, so we can call
put that-
ourselves?
So the only phone number is the railroad phone number. The fastest way for the city to respond for anything is through reporting online, which stinks for the people that can't online. So I put those links online. Otherwise, you use the non-emergency number. You use the 682-511 number for EPD. You can also report all these things through non-emergency, but you get a faster response when you go online. I know it's horrible, Jennifer, but.
Thank you.
And Thea, if you want to send me that information via email, we'll try to start putting it on social media too, at least when I have time.
Okay.
All righty. And then the last piece, Dan, he resigned from being the vice chair. All the accounts and everything, we pretty much got everything set up where he was removed from the account, and credit cards were turned off. And the only piece I have left is I need to write him a letter stating that everything was done and he's good to go. With that being said, one of the things that was bothering Dan was that we can't get together in person. So that was a big deal. For me, I will be finishing my term this year, and I think I'm also going to be finished. It's been a tough couple of years, and I just think that I need to take some time off and take care of me and mine. Is there any questions about Dan's resignation? No? Go ahead, Jen.
Yeah, is anybody going to volunteer to pick up where Dad left off with whatever he was working on? For example, the community center.
That really was his only task that he had, was the community center was trying to get back into the Head Start so we could do at least hybrid meetings. But I can ask them where he was with it, but I really don't think he got too far. Yeah, do you have a question?
I would really like to find Brent. I'm going to mess up his last name. Pemberry's pictures that Whiteaker Community Council paid for him to do the paintings that he did, because supposedly they were in the Head Start, and get those up in the Whiteaker. They were historical pictures with plaques that had what each person's history was. And it would be nice to find those because they were supposedly at the Head Start building. And I know if we want to go back to hybrid, the mission is more than willing to host us. We just want to be organized with our dates and stuff.
Well, the problem is that we are physically tied to the Head Start for our nonprofit. We kind of do need to meet there because that's considered our physical address. And then Claire, you said that you'd be interested in helping figure out the situation with the community center. I have no idea how much work it entails. I know that the last conversation, because the last conversation was that Cheryl, who is the operations manager at the Head Start, was giving us problems to get in there to get the historical papers when we were looking for financials. I think in one of our last meetings, if I'm not mistaken, Dennis had suggested to go straight to the Head Start board and have a conversation with the board members there. So I think that would be the next step, but somebody would have to reach out to Dan and see if he.
I guess, quick question on reaching out to Dan, and I'm sorry that my voice sounds like I've been smoking a pack a day. It's COVID, I swear. Did Dan give any indication that it's not okay to contact him, or are we free to contact him about WCC issues? I just wanted to check in about boundaries there.
He didn't specifically give any boundaries. Like,
Okay, because basically I'm willing to pursue figuring out what's going on there. I mean, I'm interested in it basically, so that's why. And then but I want to check in with Dan about how far he got and just make sure that I'm not repeating anything he's already tried. And I have experience dealing with persnickety democracy or bureaucracies. So I'm, not so phased on that part, but I'll reach out to Dan and see whenever I do whenever I do test negative, if he can get together for a beer with me and just catch me up on how far he got. But I will update folks on that when I hear back from him.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire.
And I think that's it. Does anybody have any updates or anything that they want to give?
We should have more things updated about what's going on with the housing grant next week at the Public Health and Safety Committee meeting. Things are coming along okay, as far as I can tell.
Yeah. I think the last piece was oh yeah, there's a local update on one of the Pacific Pub Cycle. They were the ones who were, driving around from pub to pub. They're actually being liquidated. I'm not quite sure why. I haven't seen them in a long time, like coming through. Oh, gotcha. They couldn't find a buyer. But yeah. And then eventually, I do want to see if we can get somebody to reach out to the businesses that are on the other side of the 105 and see if anybody, just let them know, hey, welcome to the neighborhood again. We're back in. All right, everybody, I want to say thank you for coming out tonight, and we will see you next week at the board meeting. The board meeting, just to let you know, next week is going to be, we'll probably have the first end of it that it's going to be public, but then we're going to close the board meeting for the last end because I believe Andrew is going to be giving us an update on the financials. All righty, everybody have a great night.
Thanks, Dilenia. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.